Hello, welcome up to the woods, and today we're up a tree. Why are we up a tree? Right, because I basically wanted to show you from an elevated perspective. I don't own a drone or anything. The area of coppice I've been working for the last 4 years. This area here, with the large pile of cordwood in, which I basically cut last year from half of this area, is the area I cut first, and this was 4 years ago. So the coppice you see here, which is mostly hazel, has had 3 full growing seasons. We're now in the start of the 4th. Basically I cut in the winter when the leaves are off, and well, the plan is the sap will be down, but usually what happens is I get busy during the winter and I end up cutting during February and into March. So this is fairly poor coppice. You can see under here, you can see this large oak standard. It's very similar to the standard I'm actually perched in at the moment, and you can just about see with the eye of faith that away from the standard, away from the shade of the canopy, coppice is tall, and as you get closer to it, it gets shorter, and this is because of the shade. So that's 3 growing seasons. Over here in the permanent deer fence, you can see it running along just about where my finger's going. It's an area that was cut by a team, including myself, as a commercial thing with grant aid, and that grant aid basically supported the coppice, the ability to actually cut the coppice. And this was derelict hazel, and that was cut to waste so it would regenerate, and this is 4 years growth. That is approximately 8 to 10 feet high and is of quite good form, and that may be saleable as a standing crop. That would be at about 7 years after cutting. Coppice itself, as you've seen from other videos, may be many generations of man old. Looking further round, we have this area in which the tree sits, and you can see that this material here has 2 growing seasons. The first growing season it goes up very straight, and then it starts to branch, although it still puts on extension. This coppice here is a better form, similar to that you see over the back, and better spacing. But as you get near the tree, under the canopy, again it gets smaller. And you can see that all the way through. These ones here got left because these were so shaded that I didn't think the coppice would have a very good chance if it was cut. So I've left them to be cut at 7 years. Hopefully during that time they'll get more side light and the stalls will gain strength and gain vigour. If we zoom round past the various oak branches, this area here got left. This is basically the size of the trees that were in here, the hazels. You can see they're up to the level of the oak branches. That got left because there's a badger set under there, which is an outlier. And over here, at the bottom of this area, was cut last winter, so winter of 2021, and this area here was cut this winter, winter of 21-22. And you can see that all the areas that I've cut have dead hedges around them. This is basically to keep deer browsing at a minimum. And you can also see in this area here I've layered a lot of hazels in an effort to increase the density of the stalls, so that in the long run get a better crop, so it's more saleable. It's therefore more likely that this wood will survive in the long term, returning a income to the farmer, to the landowner, and won't get either plantationised or turned into something else or neglected. As it stands, it has excellent ground flora, including early purple orchids and various other species, and it also has very good bird life. You can probably hear various birds around, even though it's very early in the season. They've only just started holding territories and started nesting. So that's the area I've cut. That is about 2.5 acres. Area beyond which hasn't been dead hedged. So this area here was cut about 3 growing seasons ago, and that was cut by my neighbours who don't actually dead hedge, and you've got fairly good regeneration, but it's all had deer browsing, so the form of the regrowth and the saleability will be less good, fingers crossed, than this area in which I've been working. Dead hedges do take time and effort to put up, although the way I do it, it's not very much time and effort. But they're basically a one-shot strategy. We've got plenty of material cutting derelict coppice. My product is the firewood, it's basically bean rods and various other byproducts. And they'll last approximately 3 to 4 years with no maintenance, and then they'll start to rot down, and by the time 7 years rolls around they'll have disappeared. So by that time the deer will have had access to the area and will have started browsing, and that will have an effect on the ground flora and also natural regeneration. You've seen some of my other videos, the amount of 2-year-old natural regeneration in here, especially ash, probably from this mother tree that you see over here. See the big canopy? And you see it's different from these oaks. The amount of natural regeneration from ash in here is huge. Also got quite a lot of regeneration in here and in here. But as I'll show you on another video, if you go into this area which the deer have had access, there's very little to be found, and what can be found is basically stunted and twisted, where it's been nibbled off again and again. What I hope to do next year is cut this area here and basically dead hedge part of the area that my neighbours have cut with the loppet top, because I can't use the loppet top. I can use the firewood, which is these larger stems, and I can use the sun shoots for basically bean rods. If I don't sell those as bean rods, they'll go as kindling for my own fire, but all the firewood is for my own use. It's not a commercial activity. There's basically very little commercial value, if any at all, for derelict coppice like this. Over in the back, got some very nice looking hazel coppice, but unfortunately that's been deer nibbled and the form is very poor and it's gone overstood. So it's now more than 7 years old and it's too fat for premium commercial type uses. I don't know if you can hear the bird song, but there's at least 4 different species you can hear in the background, holding territories, getting ready to nest. And the areas in which they'll nest, especially these small songbirds, won't be in the tops of the trees. They may be in some of this ivy, if they can get it so it's stable enough, and ivy on the edges of the wood, but they'll be in some of the dead hedges, which are really nice and thick, and possibly these areas where there are racks of brambles, and certainly in here, because this is extremely dense now with the bramble, and it's very difficult to walk through. Hopefully by the time 7 years rolls around, the bramble has started to die down, because believe you me, if you try and cut commercial coppice with very, very dense bramble, it slows things right down and threatens the commercial viability of what you're trying to do. Because if you're cutting coppice for a living, you want it to be as efficient as possible, so of course you make as much money as possible, certainly enough to live on. Not very easy to do, and you need the best quality coppice in order to stand a chance. Right, we'll call it quits there, because that's just about 10 minutes. If you like this, then please say so. If you want to comment, then please do. Positive or negative, I don't mind, as long as things stay polite. Thank you very much.